Well, greetings everyone. Happy Friday before a 3-day holiday weekend. There's kind of nothing better than that. I hope that everyone is well. I am Barb Jeffries, the president of the Rotary Club of Park Cities. I'm glad you're joining us today and hope that you have a great weekend ahead. If you're watching us in the future, thanks to YouTube, I hope that you had a great weekend and that you were safe and enjoyed your family and your friends. Well, let's get this meeting started. We're going to kick off the meeting with John Glancy. He's going to join us and say our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. After John, we have Mark Kashar, who's going to speak about our featured marketplace advertiser. After John, Kyle Marmillion will be up next, and he's going to tell us about our own RCPC Foundation. After that, I'll be in the studio waiting for you to return.
Well, welcome to this week's virtual meeting of the Park Cities Rotary Club. I'm your invocator. So I will begin before the invocation with joys and concerns. I know a lot of other members have concerns. Probably some of them they could have brought to the club if we had an in-person meeting, but of course we don't have an in-person meeting. So we know that there are other concerns that probably would have been too sensitive. They might have hurt even more, but they really couldn't be presented to a large crowd of people. So we want to remember all of these concerns and also joys. Let us pray. Dear God, we ask you to guide and bless our meeting today. Thank you for all the blessings you've given, for living in the United States, for having our basic needs for food, shelter, medical help, and learning so wonderfully met, for friends, for spiritual freedom, for political freedom. We thank you for Rotary and what it stands for ethics, for helping others in our community and around the world, and for good fellowship and fun. Thank you for the members that have recently joined Park Cities Rotary, including the new members giving their speeches today. And thank you for our club's many service projects, including especially today, the Bonton Farms project that bring assistance to some of in our community who need the help the most. Dear God, this virus has brought difficulties and new concerns for just about everybody in the whole world. We now see in a new and clearer light how vulnerable we are, and how much and in how many ways we need your help and help from each other. We know many of our friends and neighbors are going through difficult times, sometimes made much more difficult by the virus and the protective steps that are required by the virus. And we hear every day about people we don't know who are hurting and need help, particularly in the current circumstances. We sometimes feel overwhelmed by the needs. We pray that those in need will feel your comfort and healing. We pray that you will help us to find new ways to be your instruments of assistance and comfort for those in need. In this meeting and in all that we do in the coming days, help us to live as you want us to, following the four-way test and living a life of service above self. We ask you to bless us as we bring blessings to others. Amen. Now, if you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be followed by our national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, President Barb. Today's marketplace advertiser is Herb Berkman and Associates, an economics consulting firm. They provide economic analysis and expert testimony to law firms and their clients. They specialize in measuring economic impact through the collection of data, development of economic models, and preparation of concise reports. Their work includes the review and analysis of complex information, presentation of statistical summaries, charts, and graphs, and preparation of effective communications. They also advise attorneys on pretrial discovery, the precise meaning of their analysis, and the kinds and types of questions that may be asked in the courtroom. Their work has included assessment of lost income and benefits in matters of employment actions, accidental injury, wrongful death, and medical malpractice. Herb joined Rotary in 2007. He's also an adjunct professor of economics at SMU since 2004. So please thank Herb Berkman for his sponsorship of the Hub today. And as a quick reminder, we have about 5 or 6 spots remaining. If anybody is interested, please give me a call or contact me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope that we're having a great week and enjoying the cooler weather we're seeing. Wanted to give you a quick update on the RCPC Foundation committee, specifically the meeting that was held on August 11th. So the total amount of funds available to grant this year were $52,728. $15,000 of that is already committed to the Bonton Medical Clinic, leaving a balance of $37,728. The grant requests approved at the board meeting were $5,000 to Agape Clinic to support their triage and mobile medical clinic, $1,050 to Ronald McDonald House to underwrite the meals provided for September, October, and November, and then finally $7,500 North Texas Food Bank as our Rotary Club Park City's 4th of July Parade beneficiary. Thank you for your donations, and I can promise you that we are making a difference in our community, as you all know. Finally, we're going to display the September birthdays up on the screen, and please remember to make your contribution on the month of your birthday. And you can do that online via the website, or you can mail checks payable to the RCPC Foundation. Our continued success is because of your generosity, so thank you, God bless, and be well.
Well, welcome back. Thank you so much to John, Mark, and Kyle. I appreciate you all taking the time to record those. And a special thank you to Mark Neese for taking time out of his schedule to work his magic and set those recordings up for us. It's good to see our members. We have got things to do in September. There are activities for your calendar. First is our Holocaust Museum tour. Janie Lovelace has been working with the president and CEO there, and we have set up 3 different dates. They are September 16th, 23rd, or the 24th. But I do have to tell you that the 16th and the 23rd are full. Both of those, in both cases, those 10 spots are taken. So jump on our RCPC homepage right now and grab a spot for the 24th. It's going to be a wonderful tour. Like I said, the president and CEO, Mary Pat, will be there as a docent that day with us, each of those 3 days. So I encourage you to sign up for the 24th, and thank you to Janie for working on that. And then we also have our virtual Legacy of Leadership series starting soon. You can encourage you to look at the link on our website, read about it, contact Cleve Clinton or Dustin Burns if you have any questions. It begins September 21st. It's in the evening this year instead of the crack of dawn at 7 a.m. It lasts over a series of 8 weeks into the first part of 2021, and it will wrap up with a class project working with one of our collaborative partners. So that is a wonderful opportunity to get to know your fellow Rotarians and to hear from 8 outstanding speakers about leadership. Next is PCR Connect. We're getting together again. Something else for your calendar. September 17th in the evening. We have Zach Davis and Holly Hollenbeck are co-chairing that committee this year, that team. And this event, we're going to try it both ways. You have a choice. You can show up in person at Maggiano's, and or you can join a virtual Zoom call at the same time. So Zach will be conducting the Zoom call, and Holly will be there in person at Maggiano's. So please join him. We'd love to see you there. And lastly, Elaine Allen had such a great idea. Her grandson is an Aggie. He's a freshman at Texas A&M. And she's so excited for him and would love to connect, if possible, he with any other Rotarians that have children or grandchildren attending college this year. So if you would let her know, it would be a great way to kind of, as you visit with your fellow Rotarians, you can see who all's at UT or A&M or Tech or any of the other great institutions that we have. So please let Elaine know. Her email is there, and Betty will put it in the hub for us. So we'll see if we have any crossover. Next week is a big week. Excited about it. We are going to be honored to be joined in the studio by the district governor, who is John Mosier this year. He will be here to talk to us about the state of the district, and I'm all really looking forward to it. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. So he will be very inspiring and good to hear what he has to tell us. So it will be a club-wide Zoom call, because I really would love for all of you to get a chance to see him and for him to get a chance to see you. We're going to start that Zoom call at 11:45. So for the first 15 minutes, you'll have a chance to visit with your friends that you haven't seen in a while. So please sign on at 11:45, and then at noon, we will get the meeting started by ringing the bell and hear from our district governor. The following week, on September 18th, will be John DeFilippo. He is with the John Buckner Wetlands Center on the Trinity River, and he'll be here with Kyle Marmillion to talk about conservation. So with that, I appreciate you listening to the announcements. We're excited to hear real quickly. We had 3 new members who joined us in August who gave their new member speeches. We had a little bit of a hiccup that day, and so we're going to replay those today for you. They are Tammy Crowser, Zach Davis, and Mark Farrell. So please take a listen, and after that, when you are done with that, we will have Jeff and Paul in the studio, and we'll hear from today's speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me and for giving me this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my background. I am a relatively recent transplant to Dallas. I grew up and was raised in Northwest Indiana. I went to Purdue University for both my undergrad and MBA, and I built my career in the legal industry. I worked in small and large law firms. I've also worked in a legal malpractice insurance firm. Most of that time was spent in the city of Chicago. I have held roles such as the head of HR. I've been director of administration and operations. And currently, I oversee the business operations for the Southwest region of a large law firm, Foley & Lardner. Foley & Lardner acquired the firm Gardier, which some of you probably have heard of and probably have had business dealings with. And one of the things that I really enjoy about the work that I do is interacting with the people. And with that in mind, I embarked on a professional coaching certification. And I can use those tools working with my employees and also people outside my organization to help them set and achieve goals. I am a big proponent of being involved in organizations, and I have participated in SHRM. SHRM is an HR organization, and I was past president of the chapter in Chicago where we had roughly 1,000 members. I've worked with the Association of Legal Administrators and planned conferences and headed up the professional development arm of that organization. So I really enjoyed that type of work and being a mentor to others. And what I wanted to do when I came to Dallas was to continue to be involved with organizations. But I wanted to shift my focus away from so much of the professional organization work that I've done to community involvement. And I met a friend at the Highland Park United Methodist Church, Jill Jordan, and I remember her saying that Rotary was something that she was involved in, and what she liked about it was that she could work with a variety of organizations and do good and do it with a group of people. And that really stuck with me. So I started to visit Rotary, and I found it very welcoming and thought this is where I want to invest some time. I like the organizations that I heard about, and I'm especially passionate about women, single mothers, and girls. And I know there's plenty of ways that I can impact that community through the work that Rotary does. I'm interested in getting involved with the Bonton Agape Clinic project. I think that's so inspiring. I'm interested in Ronald McDonald House work and the food bank. So I'm super excited about this organization and the chance to connect with all of you, get to know you better, and do some good in the community. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zach Davis. Happy to join the Park Cities Rotary Club. I've met several of you so far and look forward to meeting the rest of you in the future. Just a little bit about my background. I'm a native Texan. I was born in Austin, Texas, and spent most of my young life in that area. Moved on to Washington to go to school there. Met my wife, had a couple daughters, got my MBA, lived in Oregon for a short time, and then came back to Texas where our daughters went through high school and graduated and went on to college. And recently, my wife and I relocated to the Dallas area, which is why I joined Park Cities Rotary Club. I have been involved in Rotary Club or Rotary in general through 4 different clubs, 2 in Washington and 2 in Texas. And almost for a little over 15 years, somewhere between 15 and 20 years, if I can put my finger on it at some point. I love Rotary, completely committed to all of the outreach and all the wonderful things we do in service at the local club level as well as the international organization. And so happy to be a part of this, happy to put myself to work, however anybody sees my skills fitting. So in my day job, I work in wealth management. I have a company called Sparrow Advisors, and we're a full service wealth management firm working with high net worth clients and ultra high net worth clients, trying to help them with pretty much everything they need. We have a specialization in planned giving and working with helping people realize their philanthropic goals. And so if anybody has any questions for that, feel free to reach out to me. And, above all, I think that my personal goal and my wife's goal, we're very involved in philanthropy. We consider ourselves small budding philanthropists, certainly nothing too high on the scale, but we aspire to. And in that regard, as a hobby, but also as a part of an extension of our philanthropy, I'm a professional sailing captain. And so I like to take sailing outings and often donate sailing outings to live auctions for different philanthropic causes that my wife and I like to support. And recently, moving to Dallas, I'm still working that out. So nobody can call me and ask for a donation just yet. I'm still working out where to sail around here, but and obviously with COVID and everything, it's slowed that process down a little bit. But love to help out where I can. Planned giving, like I mentioned, is a big passion of mine. So if anybody has any topics along that line that they'd love to talk about, happy to have that discussion with anybody and talk about how it's impacted our life and others. And with that, I'll end, but I do want to say one thing. This is just a brief introduction, and I would love to get to know each of you individually down the road. So if anybody wants to ping me during COVID, I am happy to converse with anybody on Zoom, on phone, whatever we can do to get to know each other better and be of service together. So thank you very much. Glad to be a part of the club.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Farrell, and I'm really glad that I joined the Park Cities Rotary Club. And I was a former attorney for AT&T, and now I work for my wife. I have 2 sons. One's here in Dallas. He works for JP Morgan Chase Bank. I have another son who's interested in the art business, and he's out in Los Angeles. And I'm really thrilled to be joining the Park Cities Rotary Club. I mean, they're just great people at the club that I've met. Lee Wagner, Barb Jeffries, Richard Stanford, just everyone that I've met has been really welcoming to me. And I've been really impressed by all the service programs that this club has got going on, the North Texas Food Bank, the Agape Clinic, the Ronald McDonald House, the Readers for Leaders program. It's Meals on Wheels. It's just a great way to get involved with our community and to give back. So I really like that. And then our speakers at our lunches and now virtually have just been absolutely outstanding. And I think it gives me and everybody an opportunity to learn. So really looking forward and to meeting more. Hopefully we'll be able to get together in person sooner rather than later, but really enjoyed everybody I've met and very welcoming. And it's a great club. It's well run and full of good people.
Hi there, I'm Jeff Sheehan, and today's speaker for the Park Cities Rotary Club is Paul Hendershot with the CoStar Group. Paul oversees the creating compelling data and analysis to enhance the visibility and understanding of North Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas markets for commercial real estate and all real estate. Previous positions include Director of Research of the Carolinas for Joan Langs LaSalle, Director of Research for the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, and Adjunct Professor of Applied Economics at the University of North Texas. His research has been highlighted in the Wall Street Journal, the San Diego Union Tribune, BizNow, Charlotte Observer, the Dallas Morning News, and NPR. In addition to Paul's research and experience, he served in the U.S. Air Force as a communications specialist. He worked in presidential communications and volunteered to take part in Operation Joint Endeavor in Bosnia. Mr. Hendershot studied sociology at the University of North Texas, receiving a BA, graduating cum laude. He soon began his graduate work in applied economics at the University of North Texas, receiving his MS. And outside of work, Paul's an avid aviator, enjoys traveling and reading. So, welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Jeff. And so let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to basically just, we'll start with the title, Adjusting to the New Abnormal. And that's really what we're experiencing right now, since, this was really, if you think of a Mike Tyson punch, this is what we've experienced in March across the economy, and commercial real estate has been impacted as well. So what we're going to do today is just kind of highlight what's happening in the economy, looking at specifically DFW very briefly. There's lots of sources, and people are talking about that quite a bit. But really, the reason I want to set that context is to see how it ties in to commercial real estate. Then we'll dive right into the office market, the industrial market, and then we'll have a brief discussion on the multifamily and retail to kind of wrap it all up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, why are we in this mess, and why are we sitting here in September with a title of a presentation called The New Abnormal? Well, first want to preface, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a politician, I'm not here to offer any advice, but we are heading into a 3-day holiday weekend. And if you see what happened from our last experience, 4th of July, when the early openers, as we see in the chart, kind of it reflects, those states like Florida, South Carolina, Oklahoma, they experience a spike.
Sure.
So this is what we're dealing with, and this is where we are right now. Now, there is some positive news. Texas has come back. We're always looking for high frequency data, and one of those is the number of restaurant reservations. And as we're beginning to open up our economy, we're starting to see people spend money again. We're just driving around, you see parking lots are full. Retail is starting to turn a corner. And Dallas, Fort Worth, and the other Texas metros are now pretty much on par with the United States in terms of the number of restaurant reservations. Now we're far from where we were back in January or in February, but we are seeing things. We're beginning to crawl out of this situation, which is again a positive sign. And looking at the job loss is why, you know, Texas was one of the bright spots of the U.S. economy, particularly Dallas-Fort Worth. We're adding about 100,000 jobs a year. Again, big name companies making big announcements. McKesson, Uber, Fidelity, you know, all the financial services firms that have moved in here recently or have announced relocations or expansions. While I don't want to say we're the cleanest shirt in the dirty clothes hamper, we truly are. I mean, when you look at the job losses across the last 12 months, you know, we are doing quite well, negative 3.7%. The latest job numbers that came out today nationally say we've added about 1.4 million jobs, and I guarantee Texas is doing its part to get to we're getting our fair share of those jobs as well. Again, one thing that jumps out is Oklahoma City, and I'll just briefly highlight that since they're our neighbors to the north, and we do have a lot of similarities, particularly within the oil and natural gas industry on the west side of the Metroplex. The reason why that number looks so good in Oklahoma City is because the oil and natural gas and energy industries are running so thin and running on such, their employment is so razor thin, they don't have any more blood to let out. So that's actually kind of ironic that you think of Oklahoma City is at negative 2.8% doing better than other parts of the country. Now let's get into labor force. The next couple slides really want to highlight some of the fact that the devil is usually in the details. When you look at just the labor force in Dallas-Fort Worth, we typically have, heading into this in 2019, early 2020, about 4 million people. And why that number dropped by over 370,000 folks, essentially those were those discouraged workers, the ones that either there was no occupations for them to find, they couldn't find work due to the fact that they had children at home they needed to take care of. Essentially, those were folks that fell out of the labor force. And headline employment number that most people follow, it was not really telling the whole story of how bad it actually was. That's why I like to show this slide here. And then when you look at the number of the number of employment, dropped by over 700,000 people from March to April. That was pretty much that was unprecedented. Those, if you think about it, those 700,000 people that were not contributing to the GDP. Now there was lots of stopgaps in the federal government, and like I said, we're not here to debate the political aspects of this, but what the Fed has done through the CARES Act and what the Fed has done also with interest rates has at least managed to stabilize the economy, and we are moving in the right direction. Our employment, our labor force is now sitting at 3.9 million. We're about where we were, and the number of folks employed is also creeping back up in the right direction. Now the number of unemployed, again, looking at that previous slide and keeping that in mind, we were at, the headline number was over 12, just about 13%. I would estimate that was actually a lot worse than it was. So just this provides that context of just how bad we actually were, and how this like unprecedented event has just ravaged our economy nationally and both locally. But again, things are moving in the right direction. The unemployment rate is beginning to stabilize. We're looking at just about 7%, 8%, which is again double of where we were prior. But let's remember, our unemployment rate was 3%. That was extremely low. Before that, 7 or 8% would have been somewhat respectable. So the job forecast, this is CoStar. We provide two general forecasts. Our first baseline forecast, one we feel it's most likely to happen. And this is essentially, this is this check mark a lot of folks have been referring to, and we still subscribe to this. Most likely scenario based on what's happening in the economy, and why we have this severe dip. We've lost over nearly 1 million jobs, as outlined. We anticipate jobs recovering by mid 2021, one early 2022. Things are, again, moving in the right direction. Now, I have to provide a moderate downside scenario. So if things don't go well this weekend and we do have that relapse, things could go, obviously, this is our moderate downside scenario. And in this scenario, we basically will not recover by 2025. So if you don't want to teach your kids from home for the rest of their school age, and if you want to not have a football season, please, everyone wear a mask and we'll get this economy moving in the right direction. Now let's talk about real estate. This is looking at the 4 major Texas metropolitan areas, and this really just highlights leasing. Leasing is often, it is that leading indicator. Why net absorption, which we'll describe later, is when the space is occupied. Leasing, someone might sign a lease and not occupy that space, particularly in office, for upwards of a year. So this can be seen as that leading indicator of activity in the marketplace. And quite frankly, industrial, I'm not going to say it's immune to the pandemic. That sounds a bit cliche, but quite frankly it is. We're actually up 10% as far as our industrial leasing, and we'll get into that in the greater detail. The office market has really, it's slowed down significantly at negative 23%. Retail, why that looks bad, and we'll discuss this a little bit later, I would not count retail out. It is the Lazarus of asset classes. Everyone has said technology is going to kill it, e-commerce is going to kill it, malls are dying, they've been dying for 20 years apparently, Main Street was going to die before that. It just is evolving. And the retail will always, there is an element of people that need a social aspect, that love retail, and we love shopping, and we love looking at stuff and walking around and hanging out with people. So let's talk about the office market. First off, we'll get into office leasing. To say 2021 is slowed down significantly, is an understatement. We're actually at the lowest levels we've experienced in the last decade, which again does not bode well for the next year or so. Leasing activity year to date, we're at 2.5 million square feet. And just to put that in perspective, in 2019, we had 8.2 million square feet of leasing. So we have a long way to go to get to where we were at 2019. And the lion's share of the leasing activity has been in the suburbs. So those high growth areas like the Friscos, the McKinney, Allen, the Legacy West up in Plano. And I know you've worked on a few of those projects as well. But the Dallas the Central Business District is still has some strong leasing activity. For example, Shepherd Mullen, a law firm, just signed a 51,000 square foot lease in Chase Tower. So there is why, there's an element of is funny. Everyone counted the suburbs out 10 years ago, and everyone thought that the millennials were never going to move to the suburbs, and they were all going to ride fixie bicycles, drink craft beer. They had to work 10 feet from their office, and high rises and density were going to be the name of the game. Well, guess what? Millennials turn 30 years old, and they're aging out, and they're looking for housing. They're looking for those
families, and
exactly, and school districts. So even the rabble-rousers of my parents' generation that were burning bras and draft cards, guess what? They ended up in the suburbs. So I tell all the millennials and the the younger generations, there's a very strong possibility you will end in the suburbs as well. So that's just maybe driving a little bit of this leasing activity. Just to highlight a few big leases that have happened this year, because they are happening in the burbs. Global Medical Response. It's basically the medical transportation company did a consolidation. This office is actually in the Upper Tollway, West Plano submarket, but it's actually found in Louisville, the realms of Castle Hills. There's a 60,000 square foot lease. They should be moving in later this year. There's also a debt consolidation company, DebtBlue, signed a 30,000 square foot lease in Richardson. So again, why things look dire, the fact that deals are still happening gives me hope for the office market. Now, the office fundamentals, when we look at these, and you know, you might have a few comments as well, do not look good. We've had for the first time ever since 2010, 2 consecutive quarters of negative net absorption. And if you recall from the previous vocabulary quiz, net absorptions when people move in. And the third quarter is not looking much better. And we have, the bottom line, we have over, you know, so that we still have a significant share of construction taking place, and the leasing has just slowed down. Now, I also like to show this slide due to the fact that we've been through worse. If you look at 2009, 2012, you know, vacancy rates in Dallas typically run high, anyone who follows the market. But we were up 18% to 18% during that era. And we're still not there yet, and I predict that we will be below that by the time we get out of this as well, because we had this, we have to keep in mind, this was a healthcare, medical crisis that turned into an economic crisis, that turned into the largest work from home experiment in the history of mankind. So all the fundamentals are still there. We still have a need for quality space. We still have a need for collaborative environments. And smart office and smart companies will start to find a way to adjust and work around this.
And that's absolutely correct, because obviously we're here because of the situation we all find ourselves in. But it is the experiment, because we are seeing, I know from in our business, and you're seeing it, but we are seeing sublease space coming on the market.
Yep.
We're seeing projects put on hold, clearly because of what's happening with just the issues of therapies and vaccines coming into play, which would obviously catalyze the change in the other direction. But it's an experiment on the work at home model, because we are seeing a lot of companies that are considering that going permanently. Others, the culture is required, the collaborative efforts, so don't count it out. But there will be changes that will come out of this for certain.
And Jeff, that's an excellent segue into the next slide. Sublease space. This is, you know, I know you worked on a few of these deals you could share, but bottom line is this may be the true canary in the coal mine for the office space environment. And some of it is, you know, those high profile retailers like the JCPenney's, the Pier 1s, they're starting to shed space. That was inevitable, so it maybe just sped that process up a bit. But the fact of the matter that we've added, we've jumped to over, you know, 1.3 million square feet of additional sublease space available. It's the highest it's been in the last decade, over 7.5 million square feet. I know you worked on the Liberty Mutual. I don't know if you could.
Our firm did. I didn't work on it personally, but they have announced just recently that their regional headquarters there on the toll road at 121, they're going to be shedding a large portion of the space they just took down just very recently.
So I mean, there is this. I mean, hopefully this will correct, but it is something again to keep our eyes on, and we'll see how this trends in the future. Hopefully. But if you are looking on the positive side, when we do get out of this and companies do look to expand, there's going to be a lot of space available, typically at a pretty significant discount. Yeah. So this may be a blessing in disguise, as they say. Now, under construction, you know, again, we have about 7.2 million square feet underway today. Frisco, the Colony, is leading the charge at 1 million square feet. A lot of that, obviously, is the 350,000 square feet Krewig, Dr. Pepper facility. The PGA has 100,000 square feet underway. But there is some spec space going up, even in this environment. The offices, 3 in Frisco Station, that's 210,000 square feet. Also, the Epic is another, and it's classified in the White Rock submarket, but this isn't a project that I'm a little concerned with. Uber's had some headwinds, and if that comes online, that would be a lot of space coming on the market. And also, Kaizen has a new the Link in Uptown that's coming into this Uptown business district as well. So again, it's not something that keeps me up at night, because a lot of this is build to suit, but we will see some significant spec space coming on. And just to highlight, I love looking at buildings, so we'll show a couple cool pictures of some buildings here. This is the Optic Phase 2 coming online. There's a beautiful building, the Link, the Uptown, I described earlier, 25 stories. And rent growth really is an interesting story too. The CBD, where a lot of folks thought the CBD was, again, we're seeing a strong growth in the CBD, largely due to the number of renovations, and also a lot of great buildings that have been put into the West End as well. The Luminary, other renovations, the Market Center over there. And so we are seeing some Fountain Place is another one that comes to mind, and they are starting to drive up some of those rents. And also, let's not forget, we have one of the largest renovations in the country, the National. Todd Interest has undergone the 1.3 million square foot building. When that comes online, that's going to push these rents further. But you see the quality spaces in Preston Center. There's still a need for that, looking at the rent growth. And this is rent by space. We have the ability to look at changes by space. So there's 13,000 changes since March. And obviously, you think there would be a lot more red on this chart, but quite frankly, we're seeing a lot of 62% have reported a rent increase as far as asking prices. A lot of those are in the Central Business District and along this East LBJ corridor. Where we're seeing some headwinds is really those older, the Class B, Class C properties that really have not found footing, and some of their tenants may have been a little bit, we want to say, marginal to begin with. So those are the ones that are really suffering through this. Sales volume is really just falling off a cliff. You know, we have not seen the volume. I think just the uncertainty brought on by the pandemic, you know, quite frankly, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but to underwrite in this environment is challenging at best.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of great sources, a lot of great data out there, but man, to figure out a rent roll right now would be a nightmare.
Yeah, and the issue is that, you know, clearly you make your money when you buy, and debt's so cheap right now, but not knowing where your tenants, if they're going to stay, and underwriting these things and looking at the pro formas, it's very difficult question.
But there was some, if a trend that was happening in 2019 that I think is going to rebound and to really get the market moving in the right direction is foreign investment. You know, we have to remember the Union, the Canadian firm Adventus, they bought their first Texas property, the Point of Las Colinas. Another Spanish investor bought KPMG Plaza. So again, as the gateway markets were struggling before, the second, what Dallas is why it behaves like a secondary market. It's a really big secondary market. Definitely, international investment is finding its way here, and hopefully that will happen again. But the pricing has been relatively stable. We're looking at over $200 a square foot, and it has not really fallen off a cliff. And also the number of listings has remained stable as well. There's a couple deals that have happened, rather small, older properties, but again, things are moving. We have a couple key deals here that we can highlight. The industrial market obviously has been on a tear. You know, just nothing but good.
And speak to why that's on a tear, which is an effect a lot of this because of this pandemic.
Yeah. E-commerce, anything with e-commerce,
order fulfillment,
distribution has just been going like gangbusters. But, you know, I know Texans do like to brag, and we do like to find things that we're number one in. So I have this chart here, net absorption, net deliveries over the last 12 months. And we lead the nation, and Houston's a close second in the number of delivered space. So we're 30 million square feet. Just to put that into context, that's more than Phoenix and Indianapolis and probably Charlotte combined. And those are all three of those are stable, steady, strong markets that are ranked in the top 10. But we just are, you know, we just have so much coming online, and it's just been a strong market. Leasing activity, again, you know, we've had over 41 million square feet year to date. We're well on our way to beating last year's. 2019 was the second highest year in the decade at 67 million square feet, and I think we're gonna. I mean, if I were betting an over/under, I'd give us even odds to beat it all day long.
And the reason we're there is because it's where Texas, where we are situated.
Yep.
I mean, because of the intermodals, the central time zones, the southern part of the United States. So speak to that too, because that's what really has always been driving a lot of what Texas has been experiencing.
Yeah, and one of our greatest assets is right in the middle of our the Metroplex, the airport. That just-in-time logistics, order fulfillment, the velocity that we move, the fact that you can click one click and have something literally on your doorstep that day.
It's insane.
is really driving this. And again, and also, just the Forney's emerging as the next frontier as well. That Amazon just announced a 1.2 million square foot fulfillment center. So even the non-traditional submarket, or the submarkets that were kind of overlooked, are now emerging, like the Allens and the Forneys and even the Dentons. A couple deals, 1.1 million square feet Amazon on the airport is actually in Irving, the east side of DFW. Again, one of the biggest leases to date. It's Tempur Sealy also on the airport. So we see this trend, this airport effect that is definitely taking place. And we'll discuss Northeast Tarrant and the Alliance Airport and everything going on there as well. But the intermodal facility, FedEx just signed a 770,000 square foot lease there in May. Now, when I look at this chart with the fundamentals, again, that construction pipeline is a blessing and a curse. When you think of how much, we have 29 million square feet under construction. Like, again, that's more than Chicago, Phoenix, all these big places. If we do have that second scenario and it's moderate downside, and even people start to hold back on their spending and e-commerce starts to slow down because people just aren't buying because they are worried about their jobs and they see their neighbor losing jobs, that could really start, we could start to see that bump in vacancies. But as of right now, we are meeting absorption. Absorption's meeting the construction, and things have been stable. But again, I like to look back a little bit further, 2016. We've been over almost 12% in our industrial market. Right now we're sitting about 8%. So, let's things have been worse, and, hopefully we pull out of this quickly. And rent growth in, industrial is pretty stable. We're looking at about 4.5% across the boards. We are one of the fastest growing, markets in the country.
That's good rent growth.
Yeah, that's a good one to have. But then Northeast Tarrant Alliance, 7.6 million square feet of construction in that one submarket. That is literally, that's more than that's more than most markets have, to be honest with you. Allen McKinney, 1.5. There's around that McKinney Airport, there's some plays taking place. Denton, around that airport, we're seeing Dolphin develop a few industrial buildings as well. So those outer ring suburbs are now emerging as the next industrial plays. Just a couple of these construction, 1.1 submarket, East Dallas-Fort Worth. Again, this is Passport Park, continues to build. Alliance, here's one of the buildings they have underway, over 800,000 square feet in Alliance Center. Again, they just continue to build. What they've done to that Alliance, the vision they've had out there, I mean, has been, like they were the first and only industrial airport. And I tell you what, maybe there were some naysayers 20 years ago, but it'd be hard pressed to find what those guys are doing now. Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, you have to really take into consideration that we've been blessed here in North Texas. We have DFW, of course, but when you added the Alliance development, and as you just mentioned McKinney, I mean, the ability for supply chain deliverables and to be worked, and that's what's feeding a lot of our economy, and of course the people in Texas here, as you mentioned, there's the amount of stuff coming online, being developed. That's always been kind of the curse of North Texas and development in Texas, building more and more and more. But if it's getting absorbed, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, we have a lot of flat developable land, and we love to build houses. We love to build industrial properties. Sales volume, again, we're seeing some slowdown in the sales volume. Again, this is just more of a sense of the uncertainty in the market. But there are some deals taking place. Core 5 Industrial sold this to Cabot Properties. There was an undisclosed amount, but again, we're seeing some deals are taking place. Commerce 30, 1.2 million square foot deal. Hillwood sold this to Clarion. So again, even in spite of all this, we're seeing prices stable. We haven't seen the pricing fall off a cliff yet. We have not seen deals completely fall off a cliff. And the deals that were in the pipeline, folks are comfortable and confident to do them. So again, so this is again a reflection of the strength of our economic underpinnings and the growth in the market.
Sure. Paul, that's great, and trust me, you know, the information there for industrial and for office is great, and obviously there's other portions to our economy here, and clearly we've touched on retail, and let's talk about a little bit more about retail and also multifamily. And just kind of, because clearly the retail, as we always say, you know, I would not want to be a holder of retail right now. But let's kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, you know, retail like I said earlier, it is evolving. And it has slowed down. I mean, so far during the second quarter, there were 21 leases signed over 10,000 square feet. During the same time last year, there was 44. So there's no question that things have slowed down significantly. And a lot of the malls are reinventing themselves and finding new uses of space. I've even heard that Amazon was taking some of the old anchor space. But at the end of the day, vacancy rates in retail are just about 5%. We've added more retail over the last decade than any other metropolitan area. If demographics is destiny, you could say, those areas like the Friscos, the northern hinterlands, they used to be northern hinterlands, that's where the lion's share of the retail construction is taking place. And as long as folks are moving there, we will see strong growth in those areas. So why I think that retail will have a correction. You know, we currently have 3.1 million square feet underway. There's 3.9 million in 2019 this time. So we're still adding space. It's not like it's fallen off a cliff. And the fact of the matter is that people will have a need for retail. We are experiential, you know, not to use a cliche experiential, but it is one of those things that we do have a need to be around and, you know, experience things and life. And so I think retail will survive. It will maybe look different after this. I think Americans we are tightening our belts a little bit, and we're finding different ways to spend money. Maybe you look at some durable goods, people are investing in their homes and remodeling, and maybe not going out to eat as much, but you know what, that's going to come around in the long run. Yeah,
there's no question. If Home Depot and Lowe's have done very well in this period of time, and of course, you know, that experiential experience clearly of on the retail side with all the growth we're having, you know, and all the northern growth, you know, Salina. That was that's a one-stop town. Who is this? But now the amount of growth happening out there, they have that need, because I know that the towns like Prosper and Salina, they need more retail within their. I know the cities would appreciate that, but again, right now we're working through this mess. So
exactly, and let's face it, like I said earlier, retail is the Lazarus. It will continue to evolve, and as multifamily, just to quickly touch on that, We've added more multifamily units than this year than anyone else. We have 5,000 units we've absorbed, and we continue to things are moving in the right direction. Rent payments in Dallas-Fort Worth have people are paying their rent. That's a good sign, and we're also relatively affordable. You know, and a lot of
it is trending. It was trending up.
It has been trending up, but it is stabilized. We haven't seen a huge jump in concessions per se. So even on the multifamily front, we're holding. I'd say we're holding serve.
I have a question from past President Richard. He'd like to know, if you were to guess, what is the percent of U.S. workers who will permanently be working remotely?
Wow.
After
that's the $1 million question.
Versus those who worked remotely before.
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And I know it's really, I think there's a few factors that are going to affect this. One, how long this pandemic happens and how long people do, we are in this new abnormal. Well, when is just this the new this abnormal become the new normal? And so at first this was almost a novelty. Everyone went to work from home. You took your little computer and your desk and you set up a little home office. Well, now people are actually, I know, like at my house, we're actually turning a room into a permanent office. I mean, we're looking at this more of a long-term type of situation. So, I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how many, because I would say it'd definitely be an increase in the long run, because the technology is proven. Because remember, working from home, again, was not a new concept. We were talking about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We're all supposed to be working from home now, if I remember correctly. But at the end of the day, there has to be that, the smart companies that do have a strong corporate culture and they need a strong corporate identity will return to the office and they will find ways to work around this. So I would say in the short term we could see a spike as everyone's figuring this out to a point, but it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a long-term trend. I think we'll fall back into where we were before. Quite frankly.
And Paul, what we're seeing to that very end, we are seeing companies that are considering it. The trend at work at home has been going on for a long time. You'll have like a hub and spoke model where there'll be a central office, but people come in not as much as they used to. But clearly, your largest expense in running any enterprise is your cost of labor.
Yep.
So if you can control that, generally a lot of times your second or third most expensive portion, which is your bricks and mortar, you don't need it. It's being considered. And to your point, the longer this goes on, the more it will be considered as being more of a permanent idea.
Yes. I mean, so it is critical how these, how this plays out in the next few months. I think
therapies and the vaccines, we need them sooner than later.
Exactly.
So. Well, any other questions? Well, speaking to multifamily again, one last question. So, the amount that we have coming online, and because of the eviction, these other legislative things that have been put in place, I think that's one area that there's been concern. In addition to the retail, and we talked about maybe hotels too. There's certain segments within commercial real estate that are the ones that are not doing well at all. And the one issue that we discussed prior, but is always a concern, is that we don't want to have something happen back in 08, 09. And of course, there's the whole issue of debt that's on these buildings because there's so much money that's been trading hands and chasing these deals, but everything's been put on hold. And just speak maybe to the CMBS markets, commercial mortgage-backed securities, which is a lot of the debt that underlies these investments that groups have made into commercial real estate.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at I think the debt will, again, this is to underwrite right now is extremely difficult, and the cap rates we've seen have remained stable. We have not seen, again, when we look at the pricing, the number of listings, all those fundamentals that were there 6 months ago, I believe still are in place. Again, and we did, CoStar, we can monitor the people that are viewing and downloading reports and whatnot, and there was a spike in lenders. I mean, compared to typically brokers use CoStar more than anyone. And so I think there was a sentiment that there would be this value add element. Like everyone, I'm not saying vulture investors, but they were looking at those opportunities.
Sweet deals.
The sweet deals, but we have not seen those sweet deals emerge yet.
Yeah.
I think there's still like anything, if they're out there, you have to uncover them and do your homework and do, your diligence. But we're not seeing it's not like the housing crisis of 2008 or even real estate experience in the 2008, 2010 era, where you could buy houses on, pennies for $1, but it was pretty close. I don't see that happening in commercial real estate because, again, this is still I would still consider it a shock. This is a shock to the system, and we will move past this, and we will probably hopefully by the end of the year start to see the light at the tunnel and start to move out of this. So that's what I'm seeing in the markets. And I think the wild card is this, as I mentioned earlier, foreign investment. They tend to pay full price.
Yep.
They tend to pay high, and they drive prices up. And when you look at other parts of the world, the U.S. and particularly Dallas-Fort Worth, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I think they'll, that's I think the wild card factor in this in the market right now.
Yeah, we saw crazy cap rates back in the day, and you're still seeing them, and a lot of it's coming from foreign investment. But no, we appreciate it, and hopefully people will heed your advice, which we all know, and that is to wear a mask, and so we can get beyond this thing, and this will just be a blip in our common experience. But truly appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And as a token of our appreciation, we will be placing a book in the Preston Hollow Elementary School in your honor, and we appreciate it. And now we'll go to the four-way test. The things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? And third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Adjourned.